institutions like Goldman Sachs, do you think that they are now believing in psychedelics?
Yes.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Trade to Black podcast. I am your host, Shad Dales. Today we talk psychedelics as we kick off 2023, mid-January already. Where does time go? But one company, a major player in the space, has already released their Q1 financials, and that is Numinus Wellness, as we welcome a familiar face back to the podcast, the CEO of Numinus, which trades in the TSX under the ticker symbol NUMI, Payton Nyquvest. Good to see you and Happy New Year. How are things?
Things are good. Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Positive reaction amongst the investor community with the results that came out earlier this week. If I had to ask you one big takeaway for investors to understand based on your results, what is it?
I would say, the margin growth, and that's this quarter in particular is kind of when we really, I would say, got the ball rolling well with the Novamind integration.
Yeah.
And I think, not only is the margin improvement significant, but it also shows that there's a lot more opportunity with the platform that we've got and a lot more growth within the platform that we've got as well. I haven't been shy about this, but the next part of that we're looking forward to continuing to demonstrate is the reducing of the burn rate and just shortening that window to profitability, which, kind of puts us in a class of our own in regards to companies working with psychedelics, especially at the scale that we are as well. So really excited about that and couldn't be prouder of the team for the work that they've done.
Well, good job, and I'm happy for you guys, you and your team. Lots to unpack related to these results, also including a trip out to California last week for you at the JP Morgan Biotech event. So I'm interested to hear some of the feedback that you received there. And then as you we've talked about in our last podcast was just the data that came out with MAPS. So that's obviously encouraging news. But let's dive into the numbers. You showed substantial revenue growth and increased gross margins on a sequential basis. First thing, revenue grew from 4.2 to 5.7 million. Gross margins rose from 31.5 to 41.9%. What do you think, I guess, were the main drivers of that performance?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, a couple of just better efficiencies, and with that, now that we've got a really clear understanding of the platform, just kind of filling where we saw some of the opportunities. Our CCR business, our clinical trial site management operation, is really an important factor in regards to where we see opportunities going forward as well. And to get a little more into that too. One, very profitable for us, great margins attached to it, but two, allows us to engage with all of these drug developers that are, as we've talked many times about, are now in the process of trying to figure out what is the path to commercialization. And we position ourselves really as the service provider of choice because we're already running their protocols through our research channel. So it's a huge driver for us going forward, as in particular with a couple of products, including MDMA, which we've talked about, that are going to be ready for the market here in the next 12 months.
I get the impression that as we advance more and more in this industry, many people and hires to be as far as institutions, bankers, that sort of thing, are having those aha moments like, this is how it works. And this is what you've been trying to explain for quite some time. But hey, that's your day-to-day job, and these things do take time. But investors that are trying to understand and don't like to hear these things that take time, do you not feel like the hires to be, the institutions, are starting to realize and understand more of like how this industry will perform when it comes to pathway to revenue?
Yeah, no question. And the big to talk about like the aha moment, and it was reflected actually at the JP Morgan conference a number of times by everybody to the Goldman Sachs of advisors, was just the recognition that all of these drugs that are going through clinical trials require therapy, and they require a distribution partner. And even more importantly was the kind of aha of like, Numinus actually benefits from any and all drug approval, whether that be through a clinical trial, whether that be through regulatory change. We benefit when everybody else benefits as well, and ultimately, most importantly, our clients benefit. And
were they aware of that prior to the conversations of going to California? No.
I mean, I think they were aware, but I think it's just become very obvious. And I think there was probably a lot of skepticism in regards to that, because, there's a lot of clinic providers that are losing a ton of money, and there's no real kind of path to profitability. I think what Numinus has done an excellent job of is showing a very clear path to profitability without those drugs approved. And I think when we think about like for investors, what's the big sort of hockey stick opportunity? And I think, our highest margin services are ketamine services, right? When you start to look at MDMA and psilocybin, those are only, larger margin services that, we've always focused on being prepared for. And I think now the institutions are fully understanding that and recognizing the importance of what we're doing. Not that the drug development side isn't important. That work needs to continue to be done. But in terms of revenue being generated, good margins and really being able to build that now. Yeah. Whereas a lot of these big drug development companies, they're not going to see. You think about the kind of returns that a drug development company is going to need to see. It's in the hundreds of millions of dollars, which I believe that they're going to get to. But wow. If you think about, like, let's use MAPS as an example, and we've talked about this, right? So the MAPS protocol itself is going to cost anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000. MAPS anticipates that being fully reimbursable through insurance. But the MAPS drug product, is only going to cost, a couple $100 to $500. So MAPS, for every dose or for every protocol that we run, MAPS is going to maybe receive like a couple $100 to maybe $1,000 for the drug product. And then Numinus is going to see the remainder of the $10,000 to $15,000 for that protocol, right? Yeah. So from a reporting standpoint, there's just a huge opportunity for those that have done the work that we've done to build a platform that can hold and distribute that protocol, but also all of the back end work that is. I can't understate how much work it takes to actually build everything from the engagement with insurance providers to preparation, integration, ongoing support, all of the technology back end of drug storage and DIN numbers and medical monitoring, all of that stuff. It's just a lot of work. And I bet. But we've known that all of that is extremely necessary in order to offer any of these drug products. And now we're seeing it.
Insurance companies are getting involved. We didn't have those conversations a couple years ago. I was actually speaking to another highly recognized person within this industry, and it has nothing to do with government conspiracies and stigmas around psychedelics. It's just time and education and data that has to be produced. Yep, and 100%. That's probably the biggest selling factor of this industry. But the data is what is bringing insurance companies in, is it not?
Correct, 100%. And with that, there's the work that's attached to it as well. And just as a sort of case study, the work that we've done with Spravato, we've now received about $15 million worth of Spravato reimbursement, which is more than any ketamine service.
How are you able to do that?
It's just Cedar Psychiatry, our arm that we acquired through Novamind. They were very quick and early and built a platform for reimbursement with Spravato, the ketamine product, and just did the hard, heavy lifting of engaging with insurance providers and building all the back end for all of the billing codes and everything that needs to be put in place. And now they've seen the benefit of it, and we have a playbook there that we can now recreate for MDMA and psilocybin and these other products when they're available.
It's great. We've talked in the past about this Novamind acquisition and why it was a great acquisition, probably the highlight of 2022. This clinical model is making money. You brought up how a lot of clinics before are losing a lot of money. I don't think I've ever really asked the question, but Why are so many clinics right now losing money? And that's the main reason why you chose Novamind, is because it was. But what is the difference? Like, what are people doing wrong?
I think it's a couple of things. I think there was a real rush to just create as much physical infrastructure as possible, spend a bunch of money on marketing, all of those kinds of things, without really a sound understanding of psychedelic therapy. And if there's a place that Numinus really prides itself on, is that we deeply understand this work. We deeply, deeply, deeply understand it. And I think one of the things that will be very interesting is, ketamine obviously has been getting the attention from a revenue generation standpoint, but the vast majority of our revenue still comes from just our traditional mental health services, and that also very much supports our clients on both ends of psychedelic therapy. So clients who have come to see us for just traditional mental health services that are now looking for something maybe a little more intensive can go to ketamine therapy, and similarly those that have gone through ketamine therapy and in the future MDMA and psilocybin have a traditional mental health therapy support system that they can go back into, which is I can't understate how necessary that is. Think of it as, and we've talked about this before, but think about it as an intervention. And if you're going in for a knee surgery, you need prehab, then you go and get your knee surgery, and then you need rehab after that. You can certainly skip rehab, but if you skip rehab and then you go skiing again, and the chances of you blowing up your knee again are high. So you need that after support as much as the therapy itself. You need that after support, and you need the preparation support. And that's something we've always very inherently known and have looked to create. And with that creates, a lot more revenue opportunities for us. And I think that's where a lot of groups have missed. And the thing for me that makes me a little bit
I know where you're going with this. Yeah, I know where you're going with this.
What makes me nervous for the space, I would say, is also, a lot of those...
Are companies ready for this, right?
I don't think that they are, and I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of clinics, too. If you think about MDMA and psilocybin, there's a lot of ketamine clinics that were kind of advertising, like, we're a ketamine clinic right now, and when MDMA and psilocybin is available, then we're going to be that, which maybe... But the kind of infrastructure that you need to hold a 4 to 6 hour MDMA session is very different than what you need for a 1 to 2 hour ketamine dosing session. They're very, very different kinds of requirements. And so as an investor, I would just err with a side of caution, as if you're looking at opportunities and you're interested in how MDMA, psilocybin, and these other drugs are going to integrate and be offered, I would take a very close look under the hood as to what those clinics are actually offering today and what they're going to be able to offer in the future.
Time and education, just another chapter of this story, right? Let's dive into more numbers. We highlighted in our last podcast that 12.5% of total appointments reported on Q4 financials were made by new clients, and that was a good sign, obviously, for client growth going forward. So piggybacking off of that stat, you reported earlier this week that overall client appointments grew to 13.7% sequentially, which no doubt was a big contributing factor to the overall spike in your revenue. So in your view, do you think double-digit or high single-digit client appointment growth is sustainable long-term?
I think it probably fluctuate a little bit depending on the services, but we definitely see, and I've talked about this before, but there is a lot of opportunity for us to continue to grow within our existing infrastructure, and so we definitely see the opportunity to continue to grow those client appointments, and really for us it's practitioner recruitment and retention. There's a lot that we can grow within our existing structure. So I think those opportunities are going to continue to come. And again, when MDMA is available and when psilocybin is available, I think you're only going to see that number really, really spike, as a lot of people are waiting in the sidelines for when that day comes.
So do you have the capacity to handle additional patients then?
Yeah, we do. We have quite a bit of capacity at the moment. So that's what will a big focus for us over 2023 is really leveraging fully the infrastructure that we've got.
Okay. When reading your latest report, financials, and perhaps surprised to some investors could be that only 3.7% of appointments during Q1 2023 were for patients seeking ketamine-assisted therapy of ketamine, Spravato medicine related. So how should investors read into that? Is there any reasoning behind it all?
I think, again, it just points to the importance of the traditional mental health services. The one thing we do continue to see actually is growth for ketamine therapy and the interest in ketamine therapy. But I think, especially in the early days, there's a lot of education needed in regards to flowing clients from traditional mental health services and into ketamine therapy. And we've been able to build that referral network within our own infrastructure. So it's a great opportunity for us.
Okay, let's shift now to Cedar clinical research. During the Q1 2023, you were $0.7 million. That's a 38.8% increase compared to the prior quarter. So one can ask, why the big jump? And is this a, I guess, sustainable uptick or mainly just a one-time factor?
I mean, this is a big growth for us, but we definitely see a lot of opportunity in regards to CCR. The one thing I will just preface with is it is fluctuating depending on the contracts that we've got. So from a growth perspective, that's just something to be aware of, and that's just the nature of that kind of business. But we've continued to carve out a very strong reputation for ourselves, in particular with psychedelic companies, but not beholden just to psychedelic drug developers. We do a host of clinical trials for non-psychedelic companies, but we see a lot of opportunity there to continue to grow, and it's a very, very high margin service. And as I mentioned, the other huge benefit of that is it gives us an opportunity to start running these different protocols within our own existing infrastructure. You know, we've ran clinical trials with MDMA, LSD, psilocybin, ketamine, obviously. So it's just the opportunity for our clinic platform to continue to innovate and learn off of what we're seeing in research that, you know, other companies are paying for is a huge opportunity for us. Huge.
That is. Last thing I wanted to touch on, you brought it up earlier, is burn rate. You want to get it down to $1 million per month as per our last podcast before Christmas. You ended fiscal Q1 2023 with $26.4 million in cash, down from $33 million at the end of Q4, which averages out to approximately $2.2 million of burn rate per month. So what then, I guess, is the big elephant in the room amongst many investors as far as the strategy over the next few months to bring the burn rate down to $1 million per month or close to it?
Yeah, we've already begun to drive that down, and I think that'll be represented in our next financials. But but you know, the money that we're spending over the last while, you know, to integrate the Novamind transaction, to bring up the efficiencies, to just build what we needed to build in order to get to a place that we felt comfortable. And as I mentioned, the opportunity to grow within our existing infrastructure, you know, we've been able to stretch out the cash runway significantly. The window or the path to profitability continues to shorten for us, and there's a lot of ability for us to grow within our existing infrastructure. And I think we've leveraged that well now, where we can really execute without needing to spend the kind of money that we needed to spend before in order to build the sort of critical mass that we now have.
I think investors really want to see pathway to cash flow positive revenue versus building out all this market share. We've been down that road before. Just show me that you can make money and have a sustainable business, because we've been down this road in multiple industries where people just want to build out their footprint with no real strategy of giving a return on an investor's dollar, because it's great to have market share, but if you're not doing one thing really well, then what is it?
Exactly. And for us, sustainability has always been, you know, a huge part of our focus as a company. You know, we built this company to try and help people. And if you're not a sustainable company, it's all for naught. And so that's always been very, very top of mind for us from the very, very beginning is build something that's profitable and can grow based off of profitability and not need to go back to the market to raise money all the time. And I think, these last financials show a very, very clear path for that. So we're very excited about 23.
Smart move by going out to California, the JP Morgan event. As the industry becomes bigger, companies within the space become smaller. And now you start to see kind of like, okay, who are some of the companies I should look at and why? So if there's, again, I asked this off the top, big takeaway regarding your latest financials, what do you think was the big takeaway about having the industry, being involved in a major biotech conference? What do you think is the big takeaway from what you learned while you were there pertaining to the industry?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I continue to feel, and I probably sound like a little bit of a broken record, but the opportunity to be involved with something that I think everybody can agree is one of the largest societal issues we have at the moment in regards to mental health. And I've said this before, but if I look at it from a very binary economic standpoint, you've got a growing massive addressable need and no innovation in the last 50 years.
Yeah.
And now you have products that are showing through clinical trials results like we've never seen before at a time where we need them, now more than ever before. So I think that's recognized. I think smart money has been on the sidelines waiting to see, there was no shortage of companies that raised, an astronomical amount of money in a very short period of time about 2 years ago. And I think the smart money has waited to see who's taken that capital and built something that is going to be a part of that societal change. And I think, the Numinus team has done an exceptional job of that. And I think as we go into this, next phase, I think 23 is I've said this before, but I think 23 is really kind of prime time with MDMA being available.
Prime time.
Oregon's legalized. You see more and more states going to legalize psilocybin. Like this is the year to get really prepared for what we've all been talking about and waiting for Numinus about 5 years now. So
yeah.
One
thing I wanted to ask you as well. Institutions like Goldman Sachs, do you think that they are now believing in psychedelics?
Yes.
Do you want to elaborate off of that as to why?
To my last point is I think they've been watching. I think, and especially these days, even just in regards to pop culture, you can't you can't go on a website. You've got Prince Harry and everybody talking about psychedelics now, and they're talking about it in the context of this really helped me with some mental health challenges. So there's a massive amount of anecdotal evidence that's now being substantiated by clinical trials, and the ways to build a model that is sustainable. I think we've demonstrated that better than anybody else in the space.
What was your reaction on the data that came out about MAPS pertaining to MDMA? Very promising, to say the least.
Yeah, I can't say enough good things about the work that MAPS has done. I think every single company that is in the psychedelic space should have to pay some kind of like royalty tax to MAPS. They're the reason why any of us are here. And frankly, continue to do an exponentially just an exponentially better job than what we've seen previously. And with that, the results are astounding. They've done it all not for profit through donations, and they're now they're on the 5-yard line. And I couldn't be. I'm extremely happy for Rick and the MAPS team, who's been doing this for 35 years, and the data is incredible, and we're very grateful to be able to be working with them.
Is it fair to say that if you were buying certain companies in the psychedelic space, it's equivalent to, say, buying certain big pharma companies back in the 20s and 30s?
Yeah, I think again, we've not seen an opportunity like this in 50 years, and it's a new model. I get asked a lot, when does big pharma come in and all this kind of stuff. It's such a different model than the old take a pill every day kind of paradigm, and I think the companies that are going to come through this and be the ones that really take this forward, the opportunity is just massive.
Okay. Yeah, we talked about it a lot, but I think it's like we said, aha moments where it's taking time, but you're starting to understand how the industry is going to work more and more. But listen, great results earlier this week. Best of luck in 2023. Tell the whole team I say hi, and let's keep in touch.
Sounds good, buddy. Good to
All
see
right,
you.
thanks, Payton. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. 2023 is here, and right now a lot of uncertainty pertaining to the markets, especially new emerging industries like crypto, cannabis, psychedelics, and more. So leave a comment below and let us know who you want us to interview, what are the questions that you want asked, and most importantly, what's the information that you want to learn. Once we produce these videos, then share this to your network, subscribe to our channel, and click on that bell for all notifications, because we would not be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.